This is Test Case Scenario with me, your host, Jason Baum. This podcast is the definitive hub for knowledge and stories in the software testing and development communities. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button and let's dive straight into the episode. Scenario. I am your host, Jason Baum, and with me, as always, Evelyn Coleman and Marcus Merrell. Hey guys, how are you?
All right.
Doing all right? All right, good. You're not talkative today. Marcus, where are you in the world right now? Since you're clearly not at home.
I'm in front of a board game shop in San Marcos, Texas, because this is where my kid lives and I'm down to visit her. And I'm going to go on and off mute because I don't want to cause a copyright violation because you all can hear the background music and everything. So, yeah.
All right. Yes, no copyright backgrounds. Okay. And Evelyn is in her same very large house with that beautiful piano behind her. Awesome. And I feel like I've seen that from several people. You live with a lot of people. So cool.
Big awesome. House, many roommates.
That's right. That's right. And this week we are super pumped to bring on our guest, Angie Jones. Angie, welcome to the stage.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Yeah, we are so excited. Angie is the global vice president of DevRel with Block Incorporated. And geez, I mean, what don't you do these days, Angie? An award-winning educator, international keynote speaker. I feel like I've seen you everywhere lately, talking about MCPs and project codename Goose, which we will definitely talk about more as we go on. So welcome to Test Case Scenario.
Thanks so much.
And we are excited to talk this week. You know, one of the benefits of doing a live show, as opposed to how we used to do these, is that we could talk about things in real time, things that are going on in the world that are changing pretty much, I feel like every day. We're making so much strides and things are evolving so fast in the area of AI. And that's what we're going to talk about today, because we felt like people weren't talking about AI enough. So that's what we wanted to cover. So I guess to kind of lead things off, let's talk about agentic AI and MCPs. That's what we wanted to cover. And I'll just throw it to you, Angie, first, and then Marcus, Evelyn, feel free to pick up. But can you explain what agentic AI, how's it different from if I was just your average Copilot user, ChatGPT, whatever? What is the difference between agentic AI and maybe your typical LLM?
Yeah, great question. So, we hear these new buzzwords come around, and one of the things that I specialize in is kind of making things just plain and simple. Like, we use all of this new terminology and people get confused. And what is that? Never heard of it. It's really straightforward. So I'm going to compare the agent to like a Chat GPT, for example. So we have a Chat GPT, which behind that interface, you're talking with an LLM, a large language model, right? And they just put a chat interface on it so that you can do this in natural language. So say, for example, that I asked ChatGPT to help me debug something, right? My tests are failing. Here's the error that I'm getting. So if I ask ChatGPT that, it's going to do its best based on the knowledge that it has to give me some possible solutions to try. And I'll say, okay, here's 3 possible things that it could be. Let's try number 1. Okay, it says do this. And I'm in my other window and I'm doing the things, right? That is saying, okay, 1 didn't work. All right. And I might need to feed it. Okay, that clears something up, but I got another error. And I'm back and forth having a conversation. What agents do is do the thing on your behalf. So it connects to your systems. So instead of me needing to paste an error message from one application into ChatGPT, instead, I can connect my agent to my IDE or my code base. And I can then say, hey, I'm getting an error. Can you figure out what's going on? And because it's connected to my tools, it can see, it has full context. So it doesn't have to guess about how it should fix it. It knows, oh, I see you don't have this in this other file, or you're missing some dependencies or something like that. Not only does it tell me how to solve it, it does it. So, oh, you're missing, let's say you're missing like a executable for the browser, right? Girl, let me download that for you. And it does it. Make sure that the error is resolved and says, all right, Ange, you good now. That's what an agent is.
So we always talked about, I feel like so I've been using ChatGPT and all that stuff since it's come out. We've always been very much on it. I feel like on this show, we talk about it ad nauseum. And we kind of were saying early, boy, this is going to be your personal assistant.
Yeah.
And it was and it wasn't, right? It was limited. There's limited
Mhm.
applications, and it's gotten better. We've learned how to kind of live with it and use it as a tool. I always kind of compare it at home, like talking to friends, like who are skeptical. It's like a calculator. It's just another tool, right? Except now your calculator can like do your math problems for you. Is that what I'm kind of getting?
Yeah, so I can just say, like, here's the link to, to my math problem. And, then it could read that. Like, Evelyn got so excited. Evelyn has a test or something coming up. But it'll say, okay, yeah, let me read that problem. All right. And then, yeah, go ahead and do. This doesn't sound good. But yeah, it could like quite literally do it for you.
I do ask it to tutor me and take me through it step by step rather than doing it for me. But if I tell something like this, that like initially that's the kind of explanations that I want, then maybe with this, I wouldn't have to like do that every single time on every single problem. I could just like interact with it more naturally. Am I barking up the wrong tree?
No,
Yeah.
that sounds right. So you interact with it naturally, and you can connect these. There's various agents. So there's not like a one agent kind of thing, right? Like ChatGPT is almost a one kind of thing. There's other variations, Gemini, Bart, or whatever they're calling it. Sorry. But clearly ChatGPT is winning that race, right? And so now there's a new race in town. Who's going to win at the agent race? But there's multiple agents out there, and agents can be designed for all sorts of things. So in our world, we see a lot of the agents that are for development, or I've even seen a couple of agents that are specifically for testing. But people can create, like companies are creating agents for their application. You might not even know it's called an agent, right? But you log into somebody's application and they're saying, what do you want to do in natural language, right? And you can say, oh, let me do this or let me do that. And it's just a difference in how we navigate. It's just a different interface, basically. Right now, or I'll say before right now, you would log into someone's application. Like, let's use Blender, for example. I don't know if there's any artists out there, but Blender is a 3D software platform where you can go and you can like build things like 3D drawings, if you will. Let me tell you, that software is completely overwhelming. Like the menus, there has to be like 500 menu items, and so it's overwhelming. It's just confusing, and so that's a barrier to entry, right? So you can connect something like an agent to that and just say, draw me a mountain in natural language. I just say the thing, and I don't need to learn how to use your interface. I can use your product just straight away. So it makes things more accessible, right? And so there's agents in all types of software. You might not even know. It might just be something that looks like a little AI chat interface, but it could be an agent that's doing something for you on the behalf versus just answering your questions.
Oh, okay.
It would be like an airline where I say, hey, book me a flight to SF for next week. And I say that on Delta's site or something, right? So before they had a little thing where I can post my problems and it'll give me an answer, but now we can say, okay, yep, and book the flight for me.
Yeah, I feel like that's a great example because that shows the evolution that we've been seeing. Because I actually was just sharing this before we went live with all of you that, you know, one of the first things that I did back in 2022 when ChatGPT came out was I was going on a trip to Raleigh. I'd been to Raleigh many times, but I wanted some ideas for things to do with kids because this is the first time I was bringing my daughter, and we were seeing her cousin, and so I went to ChatGPT and I was like, plan my trip for me. And it did. And it did it in excellent. I sent it to my brother who lives there and I was like, does this look accurate? He's like, I honestly couldn't have done better. That's amazing. But now, like, it could book the tickets for me. It could make a reservation at a restaurant for me, right? Those are some ways that I feel like we've seen the evolution through the agentic AI. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. And I heard that you all talked about MCP a little bit last week, but that unlocks it even further. So, okay, we're in the agentic AI era, right? And we talked about how everybody can build their own little agents that can do things. Everybody don't want to build an agent. And we need, like, if I do a whole workflow, like say your trip, for example, you need to book hotel, you need to book flight, you need to book passes to Disney, you know what I mean? You need to book a lot of different things. So I would need like kind of multiple connections here. That's where MCP comes in. So where companies might not want to build an entire agent, but what they can do is build a wrapper around whatever API they have. So I use an app that's called, this is not an AI app, but it's called TripIt because I travel a lot. So TripIt, I can just like when I get an email about my flight or something like that, I forward it to TripIt and it makes my itinerary for me. So I know where I'm going. And TripIt keeps up with everything. So it knows like if my flight is delayed, all of that is done just via APIs, right? So we need to give these agents that same kind of access. And that's where MCP comes in. People can basically just wrap their APIs in this protocol that's specifically for AI agents. And now my agent can connect to these things and do the same sorts of things. So your trip, Jason, for example, where you said plan my trip, I'm sure ChatGPT did a beautiful job of like laying that out, but then you needed to go take some actions, right? To make that a reality. So your agent would just take that a step further and say, here's the trip. You like it? And you say, oh yeah, that looks amazing. It says, perfect, let me book it. And then goes and works with all of the various APIs that's in that flow. So it's not just one vendor's APIs. It's probably like 4 or 5 different vendors. But for you, the end user, you don't care about that, right? Your agent takes care of all of the details of that.
Yep. So now let's take it to testing and software development. And about, I guess, whatever it was, the end of the year usually is when the DORA report comes out. Unfortunately, I don't have the exact date in front of me. But the DORA report came out, as it always does, the end of the year. And it covered productivity, developer productivity. And it was interesting because while we would think with AI, things were going faster and we were more productive, they actually found that there were 40% more bugs introduced by AI. So a lot of times developers are now spending their times, instead of writing the test scripts, which maybe they didn't want to do, maybe they had AI do it, now they have to debug those. So it's like we introduced a solution that created a new problem. So is agentic AI kind of is that going to make things easier? Do we think that this year's the year that maybe as things evolve, we're going to be more productive?
So I think this kind of answers the question that I'm sure all of you hear a lot about: is AI gonna take my job, right? And that answer then becomes like, no, right? Of course, like if you leave it to AI, now we got buggy software. So there definitely is the need for a human in the loop. But here's where people are, I think, mistaken. You don't just put the tool there and say, do the job. Like if I have a hammer, right, and I need to do something with a nail, I don't just like leave the hammer there and say, go do it. I got to put in some effort too. And I'm navigating the hammer to where it needs to be. And yes, it has the muscle that I need to get it done much faster than if I was doing it with my bare hands, but it can't do it by itself. And that's the same thing here. So if you're telling an agent to like, hey, build this feature for me, yeah, it'll give it a shot, right? But is that the best code that it could possibly be? Probably not. And so I feel like people are misusing these tools. And hopefully this is short-lived. Like these are early days and everybody's just experimenting and we're wow that, hey, man, it actually did something that works. And as testers, we know just because it works doesn't mean that it's right or that it works in every context, right? And so that's where we come in and say, all right, this code is not the best, but thank you so much for getting me started. Let me clean it up from here. Or you can even direct the agent. Like I do that all the time. Quite rarely, I want to say never maybe, have I been able to one-shot something, meaning where I just say, hey, build a thing. And then I look and say, my God, that was absolutely perfect. No notes. That doesn't happen, right? And so I say, build the thing. And then I say, oh, no. What about this? Well, oh, no, we need to change that. I don't like that. Let's do, you know what I mean? And so you're still involved, but I still can move a whole lot quicker. You're muted, Jason.
I was just thinking about these like becoming this sort of agents handler or handlers for agents or handler for multiple agents if you're using something that ties them all together, right? Like you said, navigating the hammer. I guess my question in that, and I've heard this come up in some places, is where's the path for sort of the junior folks or the entry level folks when it comes to being able to check these things, because they might not have the experience to double check it. Do those folks become the handlers and then the senior people become the checkers? Or like, what's your opinion about that?
So the only way a junior is going to become a senior is if they figure out how to check this stuff themselves, right? And I'm going to be honest, like I'm kind of concerned about what this looks like for junior developers, because again, they can one-shot something. It can be created. As far as they're concerned, it works. And they might not even be able to recognize the weaker areas of the code that could use some finessing, right? And so I'm really concerned about that. And I think that juniors definitely should continue to learn the basic foundations and the fundamentals. Hopefully, not everybody, we take it for granted that everybody works on a big team where you have senior people that it can even check your work, right? Some people don't. You might be like first hire and you're a beast with your AI agent tools and stuff, but your code absolutely sucks and it's not going to scale, right? And so for those types of folks, like I definitely think they still need to know the fundamentals. I question my AI tools a lot. Like, don't just take stuff, even if I'm not sure, I'll say, is this right? I don't know. It looks a little wonky. I can't put my finger on why, but let's just kind of assess this particular function. And then it'll take a closer look and say, yeah, you're right. That's a little lazy. Let me fix it up a bit. And then I start asking, what about security stuff? And they go, oh, yeah, you're right. You know what I mean? And so I'm, again, still driving it, even if I'm not an expert. I'm not a security expert, So I'm not going to be able to like spot vulnerabilities like that. But just having the knowledge to know to ask is a lot. And I think most people get so excited. You get that dopamine hit because you got an app that works. Oh, man, it took me 2 minutes. I got a whole app on y'all. Like, you're just excited, right? But before you publish that to the app store, ask some questions.
Yeah, it seems like even the education could maybe like move up to being like about this, right? About checking it rather than about like we're not still going to school trying to learn how computers work and using like punch cards, right? Like at some point we moved up. And yeah, at school, you definitely we're still teaching folks back in what I took, like what C++, right? And before that, it was something else. It's still a little like you still have that sort of historical knowledge and things that you need to learn, but we can't expect the future like junior devs to be learning the same historical stuff tomorrow that they were learning yesterday. It's going to move up, and maybe this is part of it, that now we start them on this is how you question AIs. This is what you look for in a test, rather than this is how you start it completely. Like maybe we do start it completely from scratch for a semester or something, but then we move forward.
Yeah. I got two thoughts. Hopefully I don't forget them. The first one to that, Evelyn, I always like when like interviews or when I take like things like my certificate, like my Java certification, for example, the questions were not program this. All of the questions were like, what happens in this block of code, or what error would occur here, or spot the error kind of thing, right? And that forced me to look at code like very deeply and understand everything that's going on. And that's how I learned, so that carries in my career. It has the whole time. When I look at code, people hate for, oh my God, a code review hates to see Angie coming because I'm gonna like my team is like, does she hate me? Because I just have been trained to spot, different things or whatever. So the other point I wanted to make is back, and I want to get your thoughts. This is more of a question than anything. So back when I was learning to code, there were computers. I'm not that old, but we would turn our assignments in on floppy disks, and in the classrooms, we didn't have, we had a computer lab, but that's not where the class was taught. It was taught in a traditional classroom. So we had to write our code with pen and paper. We weren't typing it. Even though the times had evolved, there were computers, we could have done them there. And I think that would have been efficient, but there was something about writing that code down with that pen and that paper that helped it stick, and there's no resources. When it's test time and it says, write a function that does this, I have no books. I have no internet access. It got to be me, and this test, right? And I just really think, even though we could have used the newer tools, that did something to make sure that you really understood. And so I have a question, like, should we still do like the traditional ways, but you have a next level course, that then says, all right, now let's introduce some AI into it. What do y'all think about that?
I think that is such an interesting question. And so I actually came up through like radio and television, completely not tech, but in radio, when I was learning back when radio was like still a thing, like it was, you could actually listen to the radio. I feel like no one does that anymore. I'm not talking about satellite. I mean like terrestrial radio. They actually had us learn on a learn to cut tape, like reel to reel, like learn analog and learn older ways that, this is how it was done. This is how it is done. And then, okay, this makes it easier. We actually just have a program here and you're going to hit this button and the computer's going to select what the next song is. Fun, right? But at least like we learned older ways. And I've always felt like that is an advantage. And I'm wondering if the same thing applies. I think you're right. Because how do you build the muscle?
Practicing free throws, pros still do it. I think that kind of thing is critically important. Absolutely. I don't write code perfect with all the semicolons code, but I still write on pen and paper my pseudocode algorithms and stuff like that. Because otherwise it just doesn't seem to sink in.
And I like this idea. Oh, go ahead, Marcus.
I was just going to say, I've been using the MCP file system agent for Claude for desktop, which actually does edit your files for you. So you say, I have a folder in this, I have a project in this folder. I want you to create me a new project in this other folder that copies the format, but changes all of the stuff. So basically an Android app, I want you to build me an Android app that does this based on this other template, and it does all of it for you. But after that, I tell it, I don't want you to alter any more files for me. If you need to change folders or move things, that's fine. But tell me what the code is and let me type it myself so that I make sure I absorb it and I can correct things along the way as they go, as opposed to having it just do the magic for me. I think it's critically important to still stay that involved in the.
Because what if you need to fix something and it can't fix it, right? Like, what if you say, hey, can you fix this? I found this bug, and then it tries, it gives you the code to fix it.
Yeah.
You run the code, it doesn't fix it. Now it's just you and the app and nothing else.
That's how I learned that lesson the hard way, is that I asked it to do something and it did it wrong, and it had altered the files. I lost the old version. It didn't save the old version for me. So I want to, in the future, what I think I'm going to do is tell me when you're going to change the file. And also, every time you change a file, do a commit. I think I'm going to do those two things to make it a little bit more reliable.
Hard lessons learned. If you all don't take anything away from this episode, is to work on a branch.
Definitely.
I'm wondering. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say, I think with the time that we have, I definitely want to talk about Goose. And you talked, Angie, at the Selenium Appium Conference back in March. Gosh, it's already May, but you spoke at Selenium and Appium Conference, and it was an awesome talk. You can find it online, and we could talk about air fryers if we still have time. But I would love to hear more about Project Goose and what you got going on there, and how everybody can benefit.
Yeah, so I'm working on Codename Goose, which is an open source AI agent. And so a lot of the agents that we described today might be proprietary ones that kind of work within an application, and it only kind of knows its application and things like that. So Goose is an MCP client. So with MCP, there could be clients, which are the agents, and then servers, which are the tools or the wrappers around the APIs. So Goose is a client. And that means that it can connect with any of the 4,000 plus MCP servers that are out there. And so you can get Goose to do, it's a general purpose one. We specifically designed it for developers, but people in my company were like, excuse me, we need agents. We want to have fun. We want to be more efficient. And so we've worked to make it more general purpose. And let me tell you, we first started using it internally, and the company loves it. We just found such great productivity from employees across the board, not just developers. And so we decided to open source it. And so it's available for free. It's LLM agnostic, so you can connect it with any LLM that you want. And you can plug in any MCP service you want. So you can kind of craft your agent to do what you want it to do at the time. So for example, if I wanted to build a trip out or something like that, I might see, are there any any MCP servers for airlines? Let me add that. Any for hotels? Let me add that. Or maybe there's an Expedia one or something that does it all. I would put that into Goose, and then I can then do anything I want in natural language. Hey, can you book my trip and take care of all of the details for me? And it's able to do that. So it's local. You can download it, and it works right on your computer, and it can connect to any of the tools that you use every day.
That is awesome. Yeah. And I feel like it's the further we get with this, it is really a game changer. What do you all think about, the future? Is this feels like the beginning. How do we think we're going to see this evolve? And what do you think it's going to change first? What do you think the biggest impact is going to be, maybe?
I think it changes the way that we work, right? And how much we can do. So in my Selenium keynote, if anybody hasn't seen that keynote, check it out. In that Selenium keynote, it's called Air Fryers, Automation, and AI. And in that keynote, I basically do your automation job on stage. And how long did it take? A minute, Marcus? So maybe a minute. I built an automation framework. So I built a Selenium MCP server so that we have one for our Selenium users. And in 1 minute, I said, hey, go do this scenario and then write the code for it and make me a framework. And it did that. It installed all the dependencies I needed, my test runner and everything, and I was done. So I'm like, all right. Even when I check the code, all right, a few tweaks I need to make, I'm done with this in 5 minutes. What do I do with the other 7 hours and 55 minutes of my day? And so in that keynote, I shared some recipes and ideas of other things that we could be doing as automation engineers, things that we've dreamt about or we had on our backlog forever, that we never just have time to do that because we got to write tests all the time. All right, now that I have, help doing that, I can do all of these other amazing things as well. So I think that's what we're going to see, just pushing the needle of like what's possible and how much that we can get done in a short period of time.
I think I agree with you. I think just me putting my tester hat on, which I can't ever seem to take off, there are going to be some bumps in the road along the way. Because one thing I've realized is that MCP doesn't have any security protocols coded into it at all, which most, grown-up companies are going to be fine with when they put out their own MCPs.
It does now, Marcus. We're moving fast.
Oh, we're moving so fast. I've been out for a week and this happens.
Yeah. But, when you were on PTO last week, we got stuff done.
Live show. See, now we know.
But I think there's a lot of opportunity here for bad people to do bad things if they really want to. And I think that we're going to see a little of that in the near term. And I'm trying to sort of spend my time thinking, how do we stay ahead of this? How do we make sure that it's not, that we can help fixing more things around security? And also the thing that alarmed me was the idea that there's no real enforcement mechanism at all between the text of the command and the command itself. So that if you have someone who's bad at writing the prompt that tells the LLM how to use this command, then they may not call the right command at the right time and do the right things in the right context. There's going to be some bumps in the road is all I'm saying. I don't think that's going to destroy the world or anything. I just think we're going to see some hiccups and hopefully we'll be able to get over that phase pretty quick. Just regular growing pains.
Marcus, you and I are thinking about this from completely different angles. I'm thinking about all the tabs I could close, right? Like what working on a computer is going to look like in the future.
No, I'm doing that too.
One blank white screen or black screen if you like dark mode. I don't use it. And just like a singular text box where we're communicating and not just the physical tabs. I know this is going to sound cheesy and I'm always that person on this podcast, but the mental tabs that we have going on in our brains and being able to close those out because, something else is handling the stuff that we were thinking about and we have time to spare to think about, to open the tabs about that vacation instead. So.
No, I'm completely with you on that. I just think someone needs to be thinking about how do we get to that point because there's some problems on the way to it. But I'm with you.
Please close my
We
tabs.
have
Please just close my tabs. Just if we could just do that, I think we've solved world problems.
GPT how to have security in MC.
Yeah, please figure it out, Evelyn. And in 2 weeks we'll talk about your fix. So there you go.
No problem.
Yeah, Angie, thank you so much for coming on. You are a legend in the industry. We really appreciate your being on. And where can people go to find more information?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. You can find me at angiejones.tech. That's my website. All my social links are there, as well as any content that I may have created. I think I do need to put the Selenium keynote on the site. So I'll take that as a action item for this show. But yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Really appreciate it. Thank you, Evelyn. Thank you, Marcus. And thank you for giving us the most precious thing of all, your time. And we will see you on the next test case scenario. Thanks so much, everybody.